To me, and studies show this too, the thing that makes us happy and fulfilled is relationships. And you have to be present in order for somebody to have a relationship with you. So not a vision of you, but you.
Welcome to OTR, Over the Rainbow, Achieving Mental Health for Real. This podcast offers hope to many people who needlessly suffer from mental health issues. Your host, Bob Adelman, brings you information on how you can recover from any mental health issue and achieve a happier life. If you want to know more, please check out his trailer. Bob's notes on today's show follows.
In this episode, I speak to Laura Giles, a licensed clinical social worker who is a shadow worker and coach. She also hosts the podcast Modern Animism Radio, a holistic spiritual path. Laura uses holistic methods to help people remember what it means to be a part of nature and connect our healthy, authentic selves to others and the world. She has spent her career in trauma work and has discovered that the way forward is by going through the dark, ugly hurt of the past. As we release the negative programs that aren't us, our true, beautiful selves emerge.
Now, here's Bob with today's show.
How you doing, Laura? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here. I was listening to some of your podcasts, and your guests are just amazing, and I'm very flattered to be welcomed among such company. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and it's meant to actually do what the title says, Achieving Mental Health. But let's learn more about you. Could you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a licensed clinical social worker in Virginia, and I'm also a relationship coach. And I've been holistic my whole career because that's just my background in life. And I think what you were saying about, not being able to access help, I learn a lot from my clients. And I think that this exchange of information, the way we're doing it here on the podcast, and just helper to client and just person to person is so important to just the development of people. We are a community of people. And even though, I'm sitting here in a professional capacity, we're still people. So I'm really glad to be here and have a chance to talk with you like this.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here. Usually I start off with childhood experiences. How was your childhood when you grew up? Well,
I think that it's important for us to look at the childhood. So for when I started in counseling, that was a no-no. It was about being very present-oriented. You don't talk about the past. And I don't know if that's a slap in the face to Freud, or I'm not really sure why that was. But what we know about trauma is that's where it starts.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't look at your childhood and the way that you were reared, you're never really going to get to the core of it and heal it.
Yeah, it's an important question. They say between 0 and 3, you define your personality almost.
Yes. So my issue, I didn't even know that it was an issue because I grew up with both parents in the home. I was daddy's girl. We always had enough to eat, so finances weren't an issue. I have a high-touch family. I had everything that I needed. And so if you had asked me, what was your childhood wound, it wasn't until actually pretty recently that I even knew what it was. And I was the second child. My sister had my parents all to herself for 2 years, and here I come. It was not a good day for her.
No, I had a brother who was a year older, and believe me, that was a big problem.
Yeah. We hear these things about sibling rivalry, but unless you live it, I don't know. It's a different experience. But she did not like me.
Yeah, but mine didn't either because he used to trip me while I tried to walk. So that had to have an effect on me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my sister, the first story that I heard about her, I don't remember this because it happened when I was so young, was that she rolled me under the bed to hide me because she just didn't want me around. And another story that I heard was that my dad used to restore old cars, and she picked up an alternator and was going to drop it on me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah, and it didn't improve from there. It wasn't until we were adults that we actually had a real relationship. But that set the tone.
Did your parents show any bias towards you? Because I know my mother kept saying that I was her favorite child, which really was not good.
Oh,
Yeah, in front of him.
yeah. Actually, when we were little, she was actually the favorite.
Oh.
Something happened along the way. She was my dad's favorite. Something happened along the way that transferred it to me, but the rough treatment of me started way before that.
Mm-hmm. So you got picked on? You got picked on as a child? Or just by your sister?
No, she was just the beginning of it. So when I went to school, I grew up in an Air Force neighborhood. My dad was just getting out of the Air Force when I was born, and everybody was different. There were light people, dark people. There was a Jewish family across the street, a Muslim family down the street, lots of different forms of Christianity. And so I just grew up thinking, well, everybody's different, you know, you just see people for who they are. But for some reason, they didn't perceive me that way. And I was definitely picked on by girls.
Okay.
Boys were just fine. I liked boys, hung out with boys. I was a tomboy. And maybe my preference for boys had something to do with it. I don't know. But the girls did not like me. And that did not change almost ever.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fine if it was one-on-one, because I grew up in this neighborhood where most of the moms were at home. There was only one across the street who worked that I knew of. So if we got into anything, somebody's mom would be out there watching, you know, looking out the window, and they would break it up or tell your mom. So it was really a safe place in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But if I got out and there was a group of girls and mean girls travel in packs,
Mm-hmm.
it was all over.
Were you very attractive then, or it's a tough question, but sometimes they pick on girls that are really attractive because they're jealous. Do you think that was the case?
I think, yes, that was part of it, but I was also an exceptional student.
Okay.
I think that was part of it. I think there was more than one thing to it.
Okay. So that must have hurt a lot. At what point did you start to turn things around where you got more self-confidence and got into all the things that you do today?
Well, actually, I didn't perceive it as a thing when I was younger. It was just momentary. It lasted as long as the threat lasted, and then I didn't think about it. I didn't even know that it was a thing because my family was so supportive, and I had friends. It's not like I was a loner and I was totally isolated. And it wasn't until this continued as an adult in the workplace, which is why I'm been self-employed my whole career. And what started to turn it around was when I went into belly dance.
Oh.
And then I started hearing about this thing called a sisterhood and how women are goddesses. And so I started becoming curious about this femininity thing because I was not feminine at all. And it started to set some cracks in the armor, I became interested in girls and women and girl stuff and the feminine body and stuff like that. So I started to lean into what it meant to be a female.
Right.
And it wasn't until I got into moon circles that really blossomed.
What are moon circles?
Good question.
Yeah.
So a moon circle is when women gather at the full or the new moon to have a safe space to just talk about the experience of being a woman and to connect with the moon. Gotcha. So it's a very nature-based, safe place to let your hair down and experience vulnerability and just being really safely held. And when I started hearing these stories, then I started thinking about my own identity in a very different way, and my relationship to women in a different way, and the connection just to the whole universe in a different way. And I started to soften, and I started to want that because I really didn't have it at that point.
When did you really get into forming this, I guess, a company that you have and becoming, I would guess, a life artist? Is that what you call it?
My work has been an extension of myself forever. I don't really know how to work any other way. So the holistic part of what I do is it comes from my beliefs and the way that I move in the world. And I began doing spiritual travel because I had such an amazing experience the first time I did it, and I wanted to share it with people. So everything I do and my work with women now is even an extension of the way that I'm moving through the world. So all the things that I've experienced, all the things I want to share, that's how it's always been. So once I realized I can't work for, I won't say I can't work for other people. I didn't really want to work for other people because of the difficulties that I had with power and the bullying.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I said, okay, this is 8 hours of your life at least.
Right.
I want to do it in a way that honors me. And so it's just always been that way.
Yeah. Now you put together a theme called Surviving to Thriving Community. Could you tell us more about
Yes.
Could you tell us more about that?
Okay. So that grew out of Meetup. So I started doing Meetup, I don't know, a long time ago, maybe a decade ago. And we would have people from the community come in if they would talk about alternative health or spirituality or just ways to share things and connect people to each other and to the community. I really wanted to just have a place where people could network, and not in a business way, like, okay, you send me referrals, I'll send you referrals, but just person to person, to have a neighborhood. And it ended up being that it was very transactional. People would come, they would get what they needed, and then they would leave. And this was donation-based, so you didn't have to support, but nobody ever did in any way.
Wow.
And eventually that got very, I just got tired. I got tired of it being one way.
It's like you're not taking care of yourself. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So from there, I still believed in the mission, and we still had a core of people who were doing really good things, and we were really connected. So I just took those people, put them in a private community, and where we do have connections, and we do honor each other and support each other, and that kind of thing, which is really what I wanted to create. So we had like 3,000 people. We've got a much smaller group, but it's a much more satisfying group now.
That's great. So how can people sign up for this? What would they do?
Yeah, so it's at player.letitgonow.org, and it's free. Anybody can join. There's things that you can pay for, but the foundational group is free. So if anybody is interested in having a connected experience and just growing and sharing yourself, then that's really the place to go.
Okay, that's terrific. I was really blown away by your YouTube video. You talk about the sacred wheel. Could you go into that a little bit more? Because I thought that was terrific.
Sure. So the sacred wheel exists in many, many cultures, and they're all different, but they have certain things in common because they're based on nature. And so the way that I've structured mine is it starts with surviving. So that's earth energy. That's the things that are going to keep you alive. And as a trauma therapist, I focus on that because that's where trauma lives. And if you're in that space, you can't thrive. You can't really have a good relationship. You can't really do a whole lot because your focus there is just on staying alive. So if you're doing things like you have trouble getting up in the morning, you have trouble just keeping your thoughts together. You can't, you have to make lists for everything. If you're breaking down every day, you're in that space. So to try to have a relationship there, or to try to fix a relationship or grow in any way is really not going to work because it takes energy and you don't have it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important for people to know this order of operations thing, because if you're doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, it's really not going to work so well. Okay. So if you think of it as winter, that would be the winter time. So we don't have growth there. There's some stuff going on underneath the surface, but really it's not about growing. It's just about stabilizing and getting your feet on the ground. And then the next piece, we have spring, where life starts blooming. Everything starts to come alive. And this is where you start learning the skills of how to do these things. So, okay, I'm not breaking down crying every day, but I don't know how to mail a letter. I don't know how to drive. I don't know how to have a conversation with somebody. Or it could be other things. But I got this idea from T. Harv Eker. But the way that he explained it to me, and I love this, is like a stair step. So if my skills are on a level 2 and something comes along at a level 1, then I am struggling. It's like, what's going to happen next? And if it's at a level 2, now I'm in danger of capsizing. That's a problem. But if it's at a level 3, I'm over my head. So I'm probably going to be over my head most of the time if I'm at a level 2, because problems are much bigger than my skill level. But if I grow my skill level up, then I have fewer problems, I have fewer incidents, and I can coast. I can chill. That's what the next stage, coping, is about. That's spring. That's like, I have puppies and they're just learning things. Mama's teaching them how to bark and, how to behave. And that's what it's about. It's taking yourself from like a child and growing yourself up to an adolescence and all the stuff that you learn in that period. And if you didn't have parents who could teach you, then, clearly you don't have it. So you have to get it somewhere else. That's what that coping stage is about. The next stage, it's what we're in now, summer, is vibing. This is me. This is, who am I? What do I want to do with my life? And it's kind of the selfish stage. It's not kind of it is a selfish stage. Mm-hmm. It's all about, me figuring out who I am and what do I want? What are my gifts? What do I have to, how can I bless this world? And if you don't give yourself the space to do that, then you're probably not going to show up very well for other people. So, for example, if I am, my parents said I'm supposed to marry a wealthy person and have a degree and go to the country club and, blah, 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 whatever. And I make my life like that. I have not done that for me. I'm not in that life. And I get a lot of clients who have everything on paper and they're like, why am I so miserable? So if you haven't done that vibing thing, that selfish thing, then you're probably going to have some issues in the summer.
Yeah.
The energy of the summer.
All right. So I guess the main thing is that doing all this work, at what point do you go from, having an addiction, let's say, to getting, making your life so you have happy moments?
If you don't make mistakes, if you don't figure stuff out, have your own experiences, make your own choices. So not following what you think is popular or what you think you're supposed to do. Once you get past that stage, now you're in a place where you can connect. I don't think people can really do that until they know who they are. And I don't think that you really can get out of that hole until you've done that. To me, and studies show this too, the thing that makes us happy and fulfilled is relationships. And you have to be present in order for somebody to have a relationship with you. So not a vision of you, but you. So part of the work of figuring out who you are, in my opinion, in my experience, is also giving yourself the grace to be that. And then once you can do that, it's much easier to allow people to be who they are.
It's difficult for a person like myself to find things that are going to turn it around. I'm very dedicated to making not just me, but everyone that listens, giving them a happier life.
Yeah, that's why I think that places like my community are invaluable, because what tends to happen when you're healing is that you get a new perspective of yourself and of your life and what you want. And then you have all these people around you who were part of your old community who don't get it, who don't believe it, who don't want it, who just want you to shut up and be like you were. So everybody can get along. And right. When you're doing the hero's journey, so Joseph Campbell created this thing called the hero's journey, which is kind of like the arc of life, the way, the path that people come into themselves. Then you have to leave those people and you have to do your own thing and you have to fail and struggle and figure out who you are. And then you got to come back to all these people who didn't do that and who don't know what you know. and tried to fit into that. So back in the day when people had rites of passage, this was something that they did as a community. So coming back was like, you know, if you went out a boy, you came back a man. Everybody knew it and you have a new identity. But when people try to do that today, it's not a community thing. And it's like, you know, what did I do this for? I'm here all by myself and none of these people support it or care. So I think it's really important to have a community somewhere where you can be yourself and people see you and appreciate you.
It's difficult for people with ADHD because they normally don't get along in groups. They struggle with social cues, things like that. So it's an enormous undertaking to turn that around and say, okay, you have a different type of brain. That's okay. You're all right. Live your life the best that you can. And it's very hard for people to do that. They'd rather drink I used to be a heavy drinker because I couldn't do social things. I loved people, but I couldn't be with people. Yeah. And that's a terrible feeling. You know, so, now you had said that you have PTSD or, is that something that you suffer with or you
I help people with PTSD. I wouldn't say that my childhood bullying gave me PTSD, but I didn't realize how damaging it was because the way that I reacted to that is that I shut people out too. I only had a very small circle of people that I trusted. And if you were not in that circle, it was like you were invisible. Mm-hmm. So it made me play smaller. And because my inside circle was really good, I didn't really notice that anything was missing. So I think people can settle for less than they can be if everything's okay. Mm-hmm. You know, why be okay when you can be great?
Right. And a lot of people out there, my son especially, that I know of, they don't want to say one word to anybody about their feelings. They are very uncomfortable talking about themselves.
Well, I think it's healthy and normal to be in situations where you can talk about your feelings. And one of the things that we do in my private community is just that. So we have events all the time. So the moon circles, those are for the women, but we have talking circles too. And sometimes they have topics, sometimes they don't have topics. Like, for example, we did one on grief and people just came and they shared their feelings and their experiences about grief. Or it could just be, you know, how you doing today? Because we don't ask. It's a polite greeting that doesn't mean anything. It's a throwaway. And when you're asking somebody for real and you're listening for the answer, that's a real different thing. It gives people a way of being seen. And so this is really what the core of the group is about, is giving people a way to be seen, a way to practice vulnerability and not get killed for it. You know, you can really say anything because one of the things that we got going on in the group is healthy boundaries. So if you say something I don't like, so we don't really talk about politics there, not because there's a rule against it, but because we just don't. But let's say that you said something political and I'm like, ooh, what was that? Then, you know, we don't get in flame wars about it. It's just like, okay, I'm going to mind my own business and keep on going. So it makes it a really safe space to just be who you are. And it doesn't matter if you're a Martian. You can just be that.
And it's virtual, right? You have like Zoom?
It is virtual, but we do have lots of live events too. For example, this coming weekend or next weekend, we're having a bonfire. We're going to have a drum circle, and those are always lots of fun. So there are face-to-face things too.
Yeah. Is that in Virginia?
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, it's in Virginia.
Right. So what area of Virginia, in case we have anybody listening?
It's Central Virginia, so primarily the Richmond area, but we're going to be doing a caving event, and that's going to be in West Virginia. So they're not always in Richmond.
Okay. And I urge everyone to go out and look at the YouTube. Do you have the address of the YouTube?
It's youtube.com/@surviving2thriving.
Okay. That sounds really good. I really appreciate you coming on the show and explaining your philosophy and getting it out there so people can come and reach out to you. I might even, men can come, right? Because you mentioned women a lot.
Well, you would be most welcome. I think people need examples of how to live healthy lives. I think we need communities. We're not there yet. And if we're going to rebuild to a point where we do have communities, it has to start somewhere. So this is a seed,
Amen.
And it can only grow as much as people are willing to participate. So I really do appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell people. And I hope that they will come. Everybody's welcome.
That's terrific. Again, I appreciate you coming on. You're a very spiritual person, and sometimes it's hard to find people that want to explore their spirituality other than in a religious sense. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I hope you have a beautiful life. And thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.